Max Verstappen was leading the Nürburgring 24 hours by almost 40 seconds. 21 brutal hours completed. 3 hours away from one of the biggest victories of his entire career. Then millions of fans heard something terrifying through the onboard audio. A metallic cracking sound coming from the rear of the Mercedes GT3. At first, nobody understood what it meant. Seconds later, engineers inside the garage started panicking. Because the fastest car in the entire race was literally destroying itself while still leading the green hell. But the most shocking part came afterward. The disaster may have secretly started during the very first hour. One violent moment at more than 200 kilometers per hour. One terrifying save at Flugplatz. One hidden fracture deep inside the drivetrain that possibly survived almost an entire day before finally exploding with victory already in Verstappen's hands. This was not rain. Not strategy. Not driver error. This was a slow mechanical death happening inside Mercedes while Verstappen completely dominated one of the hardest races on Earth. And when the mechanics finally discovered the real damage, the atmosphere inside the garage changed instantly. Because suddenly, everybody realized something horrifying. The race may have already been lost long before anyone noticed. When the Nürburgring 24 hours began, Max Verstappen was not supposed to dominate this quickly. Because this race destroys even experienced endurance drivers. 161 cars sharing the same circuit. Traffic everywhere. Different categories moving at completely different speeds. Darkness. Cold temperatures. Blind corners through endless forest sections. Barriers only inches away at over 200 kilometers per hour. This is not a race where drivers attack immediately. This is a race where survival comes first. And Mercedes understood that perfectly. That is why the team made a decision that looked simple at first, but later became incredibly important. Danny Juncadella started the race from 4th position while Verstappen waited inside the garage for later stints. The strategy was clear. Protect the car early. Avoid unnecessary risks. Let Verstappen attack once the race settled down. And honestly, the opening phase could not have gone much better. Juncadella guided the number 3 Mercedes calmly through the opening chaos while other teams fought aggressively around him. No contact. No panic. Just smooth, controlled progress toward the front. But then came the moment that may have secretly changed the entire race. Exactly 1 hour into the event, Verstappen climbed into the Mercedes for his first real stint at the green hell. Seconds later, disaster nearly arrived immediately. The incident happened at Flugplatz, one of the fastest and most feared sections of the Nordschleife. Drivers hit the crest there at massive speed, and for a split second, the car almost flies off the ground. Now imagine doing that while surrounded by traffic at over 200 kilometers per hour. The Mercedes lifted violently. The front end went light. Then Verstappen touched the grass. Suddenly, the car snapped toward the barrier. Inside the garage, hearts stopped instantly. Because if he loses the car there, the race ends before it truly begins. But somehow, Verstappen saved it. Tiny steering correction. Pure instinct. The kind of reaction only elite drivers can produce under extreme pressure. Fans watching live exploded immediately. Clips of the save spread everywhere online within minutes. People praised the reflexes, the confidence, the control. But later, that exact moment became important for a much darker reason. Because some engineers and analysts started wondering whether the violent landing secretly damaged the car from the inside. Specifically, the driveshaft that would eventually destroy Mercedes' race almost 20 hours later. And honestly, that possibility changes the emotional weight of this entire story. Because it means Verstappen may have unknowingly driven a wounded car for almost an entire day. Think about that for a second. A tiny invisible fracture hidden deep inside the drivetrain. No warning lights. No visible damage. Nothing obvious at all. Just microscopic stress slowly spreading deeper lap after lap while Mercedes kept dominating the Nürburgring completely unaware that disaster might already be growing underneath them. And the terrifying part is this. At that moment, Verstappen probably believed he had already survived the most dangerous part of his race. In reality, the real danger may have only just begun. After surviving that terrifying moment at Flugplatz, Max Verstappen did something that completely changed the atmosphere of the race. He became unstoppable. At first, the number 3 Mercedes still looked like one more contender fighting near the front. But once Verstappen settled into rhythm, the entire Nürburgring started tilting toward Mercedes. And this is where pressure inside the paddock quietly started growing. Because everybody watching understood the same thing. The Mercedes was hunting. Verstappen entered a fierce battle with the Lamborghini driven by Christian Engelhardt. Traffic everywhere. Slower cars constantly blocking corners. Tiny margins separating clean overtakes from disaster. But Verstappen kept attacking anyway, carving through the field with frightening precision. Then the target changed completely. Now he could see the Grello Porsche. The car many expected to dominate the race. The car with legendary Nürburgring history behind it. And once Verstappen reached it, the entire mood around the race shifted instantly. Because he did not hesitate. He attacked. Passed cleanly. And took control of the Nürburgring 24 hours less than 3 hours into the event. That sounds early. But psychologically, it changed everything. When one team dominates this hard at the green hell, rival garages start feeling pressure immediately. Every pit stop becomes tense. Every strategy call feels heavier. Drivers begin pushing harder because the leader keeps disappearing further ahead. And Mercedes kept getting stronger. Through the afternoon, then into the night, the number 3 car looked almost untouchable. Verstappen, Juncadella, Gaunon, and Auer rotated through stints with near-perfect execution. Smooth pit stops. Stable pace. 0 unnecessary mistakes. But nighttime at the Nürburgring changes everything. The circuit becomes terrifying after dark. Visibility drops. Temperatures fall. Headlights become your only guide through endless forest sections. Faster cars appear suddenly in mirrors. Slower traffic blocks racing lines with almost no warning. This is usually where races collapse. Instead, Verstappen's Mercedes became even stronger. At one point, the lead stretched to almost 40 seconds. Around a track this long, that gap feels enormous. That is not luck anymore. That is total control. And this is where the emotional tension inside Mercedes started changing completely. Earlier, the goal was survival. Now they could almost feel victory. That changes everything inside a racing garage. Engineers start listening to every vibration more carefully. Mechanics double-check every tire change. Drivers stop taking unnecessary risks because nobody wants to become the person who destroys a winning race car. But underneath all that growing confidence, something dangerous may already have been developing. The hidden damage. Every lap around the Nordschleife places enormous stress on the drivetrain. Violent compression zones. Endless acceleration cycles. Massive vibrations through the rear axle and suspension. Imagine bending a metal paperclip again and again for 20 straight hours. At first, nothing happens. Then suddenly, it snaps. And according to later technical analysis, that may have been exactly what was happening inside Verstappen's Mercedes while the team built its huge lead. The terrifying part is that nobody could see it. No smoke. No warning lights. No obvious signs of disaster. Just microscopic fatigue spreading deeper inside the driveshaft every lap. And during hour 21, the car finally stopped hiding the truth. The first warning sounded small. Almost harmless. A strange metallic noise coming from the rear of the Mercedes while Danny Juncadella was driving during the 21st hour of the race. At first, nobody outside the garage understood how serious it was. But inside Mercedes, the atmosphere changed instantly. Because engineers know something casual fans usually do not. Race cars almost always warn you before they die. The onboard cameras started capturing the sound clearly. A metallic vibration. Irregular at first, then sharper with every lap. Fans watching live could literally hear the car getting worse in real time. And honestly, that made the whole situation feel terrifying. This was not sudden destruction. This was a slow mechanical collapse happening live in front of millions of people while Verstappen's car was still leading the Nürburgring 24 hours. Inside the garage, panic started spreading immediately. Engineers studying telemetry desperately. Mechanics preparing tools before the car even reached pit lane. Nobody saying much publicly, but everybody understanding the same horrifying possibility. Something inside the Mercedes was breaking apart. And the cruelest part is this. The number 3 car was still leading the race. Still ahead. Still potentially only hours away from victory. But endurance racing can turn against you unbelievably fast. One lap, you control everything. The next lap, the entire race disappears. Finally, Juncadella brought the Mercedes back into the pits. And the moment mechanics inspected the rear right side, the atmosphere became even darker. The diagnosis arrived quickly. Driveshaft failure. Completely mechanical. No contact with another car. No crash damage. Nothing external caused it. That detail matters enormously. Because this was not Verstappen pushing too hard. Not a risky overtake gone wrong. The dominant car of the race simply destroyed itself from the inside after surviving 21 brutal hours at the green hell. Now for casual fans, a driveshaft sounds like a small technical part. But in reality, it is critical. Think of it like the chain on a bicycle. Your legs create the power, but the chain transfers that power to the wheels. Once the chain snaps, the bike becomes useless no matter how hard you pedal. That is exactly what happened to Mercedes. The engine still had power, but the drivetrain could no longer transfer it properly to the wheels. And then came the detail that completely killed Mercedes' hopes. The broken driveshaft had damaged surrounding suspension and wheel-carrying components too. That changed everything instantly. A simple driveshaft replacement might have been manageable. But once nearby structural parts were damaged, the repair became a nightmare. The mechanics already understood the truth before anyone officially admitted it. The race was slipping away. Still, team boss Steve Bushman initially tried sounding optimistic. He explained publicly that the issue was mechanical and said the team would attempt repairs and return to the race. But time was now Mercedes' biggest enemy. 3 hours remained. And repairs involving the driveshaft, suspension structures, and wheel carrier could take far too long to save victory. That realization hit the garage brutally. Because this was not some midfield team fighting for survival. This was the fastest car in the race. 21 hours of near perfection. Destroyed by hidden mechanical fatigue nobody could fully see until it was too late. And then came the moment nobody inside Mercedes wanted to hear. The team officially retired the number 3 car. Just like that, Verstappen's Nürburgring dream ended. 30 seconds ahead. 3 hours from glory. Then silence inside the garage. Mechanics standing around a broken Mercedes while another car inherited the lead instead. And suddenly, everybody started thinking back to the same terrifying moment. Floodplaats. The violent landing. The save during hour 1. Because if that impact truly created microscopic fractures inside the drivetrain, then Verstappen may have unknowingly spent almost an entire day driving a car that was already dying from the inside. Which makes this defeat feel even crueler. The race may have actually been lost long before anyone realized disaster was already coming. What happened after the retirement exposed something brutal about Max Verstappen that Formula One fans almost never get to see. Helplessness. Because for 21 straight hours, Verstappen had done almost everything perfectly. He survived the green hell. He controlled traffic. He dominated through the night. He built a huge lead around one of the hardest circuits on Earth. And none of it mattered in the end. That is what made the atmosphere inside Mercedes feel so heavy afterward. Not anger at a driver mistake. Not frustration with strategy. Just disbelief. Mechanics standing around a dead car that had looked unbeatable less than an hour earlier. Engineers replaying telemetry searching desperately for answers. Drivers trying to understand how a race they completely controlled could disappear because of one hidden mechanical failure deep inside the drivetrain. And then came the cruelest twist of all. Another Mercedes inherited the lead and eventually won the Nürburgring 24 hours instead. Think about how painful that must have felt. One Mercedes garage celebrating victory. Another Mercedes garage completely silent. Same manufacturer. Same race. Completely opposite emotions. And for Verstappen personally, this defeat carried emotional weight far beyond endurance racing. Because 2026 had already become filled with frustration. Australia brought problems. China ended with reliability issues. Japan slipped away. Miami showed promise, but still ended with disappointment. And now Nürburgring delivered the cruelest heartbreak of all. This time, Verstappen was not fighting for championship points. He was fighting for something deeper. Legacy outside Formula One. Proof that he could conquer one of the most feared races in motorsport during his first real attempt. And honestly, for 21 hours, he absolutely did. That is why the reaction online became so emotional afterward. Fans called it one of the most brutal mechanical failures of the entire season. Others started joking about a curse surrounding Verstappen and the number 3 during 2026. But underneath the jokes, there was a much darker tension hiding inside the story. Pressure changes teams. Repeated heartbreak changes drivers. Every vibration suddenly feels dangerous. Every future reliability issue becomes terrifying because recent failures stay inside people's minds much longer than victories do. And the deeper engineers analyzed the Nürburgring collapse afterward, the more haunting the entire story became. Because driveshafts rarely explode without warning. They fail after enormous accumulated stress. Hours of acceleration loads. Violent direction changes. Massive temperature swings between freezing night air and intense mechanical heat. Now combine all of that with one violent impact early in the race. The floodplaats moment. The airborne landing. The brutal shock sent through the rear of the Mercedes at over 200 kilometers per hour. Suddenly, the theory becomes impossible to ignore. What if the race was already damaged during hour 1? What if the driveshaft survived almost 20 hours carrying microscopic fractures nobody could detect? Imagine cracking a piece of glass very slightly. At first, nothing changes. It still looks strong. Still stable. But every vibration spreads the crack deeper until suddenly the entire structure shatters. That may have been exactly what happened to Verstappen's Mercedes. And honestly, that possibility makes the defeat feel almost haunting. Because it means Verstappen may have unknowingly driven a dying car while building a massive lead through the darkness of the Nürburgring. Victory looked secure. The garage believed they were controlling the race. But underneath the car, disaster may already have been growing silently lap after lap. And Verstappen's own reaction afterward revealed how confusing the entire situation felt even from inside the team. He admitted they noticed something strange during the stint, but could not fully understand how the failure became so severe without major contact. That uncertainty still hangs over this story. Because Formula One usually teaches fans that talent controls outcomes. But endurance racing teaches something much colder. Sometimes perfection is not enough.